Hello, hello. Welcome to this month's live Q&A. I'm Virginia, the owner of Podcast Abundance, where we produce financial podcasts in audio and video for financial advisors, CPAs, bookkeepers, anyone in the financial services industry who is producing a show with the purpose of attracting new clients into their business. So here we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, by the way. So if you have a preference on which platform you would like to be in, just hop over there. And what I want to invite you to do right now is if you have a question about podcasting for your business, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what those questions are so that I can answer them right here live for you. So let me just get to where I can see your comments on these couple of different platforms so that I can interact properly with you. Meanwhile, I want to thank you for joining me here today. Again, like I said, we produce financial podcasts. I've been doing this since 2019. I learned very quickly that I much prefer to be in the background of production. It is rather tough for me to show up like live on camera, like I'm doing today. It's kind of like a force yourself to do it moment. But I really enjoy financial content, which is not something I produce. That is definitely something that I enjoy consuming. And so when I created this business, it was a great opportunity for me to consume content that I enjoy, be the editor in the background, listen for things that might be problematic for clients or any kind of like issues as far as what you're saying about finances, just since I'm so familiar with the content. And then also just get to really be that marketing mind to help the business owner who's clearly not a marketer to really market their business well via a podcast. So that goes into the words you say, the visuals of your show. So, like your cover art, anything you're doing on repurposing as far as like Instagram, or like if you're putting your videos on YouTube, your thumbnail cover. Spotify now offers the opportunity to post a thumbnail cover with your video. In addition to the option of creating episode specific cover art. So, all of these things, whether it's your messaging, which is the words you're saying, your descriptions, your show notes, all of that, the visuals, your choice to do audio or video, all of these things matter for what you want your audience listening to your podcast to do, right? Like, what is the end goal that you want these listeners, the action that you want them to take with your business? Do you really strongly value Instagram followers because you have another proven method to convert Instagram followers to clients? And so maybe that would be your call to action if that is in place. Most of us do not have that in place. So, a better call to action would be probably to join an email subscriber list, right? To join your newsletter, to be able to get a consistent drip of information about your business and how you help people so that it further nurtures them and entices them to want to become a client. So, that's just a little bit about how we do what we do and my thoughts behind what we would be helping our clients with. So, like I said, in the meantime, while I'm logging in and checking the different comments on things, drop your comments, your questions about a podcast, right? It could be about any type of podcast. Even if you do have a knitting podcast, that may not be what I want to produce, but I'm pretty sure I can answer your questions about it since I have been doing this for a while. So, Let's okay, here we go. Now I can see your comments. Yay. All right. Here we go. Just a second. Gonna mute this here. Okay. Thank you for commenting about that you recently went to my YouTube channel and check that out. I appreciate it. If you have any questions about podcasting, let me know. All right. So, meanwhile, I do have a few other questions that have been submitted. Um, First, like number one question is, how do I start a podcast right away? So when you're asking this, my mind starts to think about, okay, you've probably wanted to do this a while, and you may have done some research. And the reason you haven't started actually, though, is because you're afraid of a misstep, and you want to make sure that you do it right. So some of the easiest steps that you can take to start a podcast right away is, for one, don't spend a lot on equipment. This is a $60 to $70 episode microphone, and my teenager would be like flipping out right now because I just did the like 6-7 thing. But it's a Samson Q2U, very affordable, small box, comes in the mail. It comes with a USB option and I'm losing the words right now, but anyways, the other option. So most of us are looking for this simplest way to connect, microphone into computer via USB. So Samsung Q2U is a great way to go. The other thing you need is just a simple set of headphones or earbuds that you can connect in. This is a pricier pair because it is for the producer role. It has some awesome stuff built in so that I can hear every little click and smack and tone of voice. So, very specific on my headphones, but yours don't have to be. They can be something your kid would use to play on their tablet. They can be, $50. It really simple, low cost equipment here. If you want to do interviews, I recommend using Riverside FM. I do have an affiliate link. If you're so gracious and you want to reach out and ask me for my affiliate link, I'll share it with you. But I use Riverside for my recordings. And in most cases, I recommend that that is the best tool on the market for it. There are, Squadcast and other things that you can use. I would want to discuss the use case there. If, for example, you are wanting to DIY your show and you're going to be editing it yourself and you are not a trained, audio editor with like a audio degree of some sort, and you want to use Descript as your editor, that is a great tool for DIY editing and repurposing, whether you're doing audio or video. So if you're going that route and you look up to find out your Descript subscription, you'll notice that Squadcast comes with it. So in that case, yes, one subscription, use your Squadcast to record solo and interview episodes, and then you can DIY edit in Descript. For the most part, my team and I pull episodes that my clients record out of Riverside, and we are editing them in our own tools, whether someone prefers, some Adobe tool, Reaper, Audacity, like whatever my editors choose to use is not my problem, as long as when I hear the final episode, it sounds good, looks good, all the things. So I love Riverside. Riverside has started to build in some DIY editing tools. Like if you're someone who wants to do your own clips for social media or shorts for YouTube, that's a great option because they do have some really cool AI tools built in there. So, beyond that, you've got your equipment, you've got your tools so you can record if you're DIY editing. If you don't want to DIY edit, then obviously I and my team are here. We love to, get a hold of a great show and be responsible for the edits. just so that you can focus on the creation part and not the post-production. That is what we do best. So, after that, what you really need to look at is where you're going to host your show. So there's the typical audio hosts like Libsyn and Buzzsprout, several others. You can also host your podcast through someone that supports video like Spotify or Podbean. There is a new one that just came out. I'm losing the name off the top of my head right now. But then you can post your episodes separately to YouTube if you're choosing to do video. So it's just a matter of finding your podcast host that you like, that has unlimited data, and that will share your video to certain platforms if you're doing video. And if not, then the choice is much easier, and you can go with almost any podcast audio host account. Inside that account, that's where you distribute your show to all the podcast apps. If we were launching your show, I would do all of that legwork for you. And then so far, there's not a tool that will also post your video to YouTube. So that is a separate thing where you're creating your channel and you're posting your video to YouTube. But that is how you get started quickly as far as podcasting. So, being afraid of missteps, I would say the missteps are not typically equipment, which platform you chose, things like that. Those can be issues, but more often than not, the missteps that I see are in the messaging and branding and even naming of the podcast. So, if your show requires explanation. Let's say the art on the cover is some cool, graffiti or something that, your kid drew, or even like a headshot of yourself. And then your title is above that. Okay, great. Maybe it has great colors. Maybe it looks visually appealing. But if I read that title and I see your picture and I don't really understand what your show is about, then there's something missing. So the show title, your podcast name, should not need an explanation. If someone from, the public can read your show name, see your cover art, look at a couple of your episode titles and still be unclear about what your show is about or who it's for, then that shows we have a little bit of an issue, right? You want to be not clever, very clear about who your show is for, what it's about, and how it helps your people, especially if your podcast represents your business and you're trying to attract clients. We don't want to be confusing people on the front end of let's say, top of funnel. They are never going to enter the funnel, right? They're never going to sign up for the newsletter or become a fan of the show, and then they're never going to become a client of the business. So we have to be really cognizant about the name of our podcast, the episode titles, and the description. What just happened to my camera? The description of your show. So, see, even producers have like live issues. All right, so let me check once again for some additional comments and questions. All right. Thank you all for being here very, very much. Awesome. Awesome. All right. The next question I have is, how do I come up with content ideas that attract the right audience? So this goes in alignment with the messaging that I was just talking about. So some simple content ideas are kind of like what I'm doing here, where you take your top questions that you get asked most often, or maybe you host lives like this, or you host a poll online, and you gather questions that people have about your industry, your niche, your solutions that your business provides, right? For me, people are asking about host accounts and equipment, and how do I make my sound great, and, questions about content and things like that. So these are very simple episodes that I could create to help others, but to also show my expertise, my authority in the niche, and to attract them in as potential clients, right? Like if I know all this stuff about podcasting, why wouldn't you want me to edit your show, right? So if you know all this stuff about investing, why wouldn't I want to have you invest my money, right? And trust you with that role. So that is what we're trying to do with podcasting. So I highly recommend doing polls on social media. LinkedIn has an awesome polling feature, um, doing some emailing, and just starting to collect questions that you get all the time, especially on sales calls or introductory calls. So that will easily fill out a list of 10 to 20 episodes where you can just answer questions one at a time, right? Like one per episode, so that every episode is very, very niche and specific. You're answering that question, you're doing a deep dive. You can just talk for like 5 to 10 minutes on that one question, I bet, very easily. And when you're answering questions that your ideal customer is asking often, right? Questions you get all the time on sales calls. You will automatically attract more ideal clients who have that same type of question to your business, to your content. So, with those episodes where you're answering those highly asked questions or FAQs, make sure that you also have a call to action that relates to the question they asked. So if you were asking me about content like this, I could easily share my script starter freebie that's available for download on my website, because that um, download, it's a PDF, several pages, it's very helpful. And there is even an AI section of like how to do this with AI. And while it says script, if you don't want to operate off of a script, that's fine. But that freebie helps you create content by identifying what are common topics that people ask about, what are common educational points that everyone who comes in contact with my business needs to learn. So there are several opportunities there to have content created that serves your exact ideal client. And that's what we want to start doing as we're talking about our business, our services, how we help, what we do. We want to be answering those frequently asked questions. And not only will that help the first person that asked it, but probably thousands of other people as they listen to your episodes. Because the other thing that's awesome about podcasting is that once you post an episode, it lives out there in perpetuity until you go into your podcast host account and literally delete the episode, which I don't know why you would do that. It's going to stay out there and it can garner listens 3 years from now. So that's also the magic of podcasting, is that people don't just listen to current episodes. They go back and they might be searching for something that's in the title of your episode, which is why you want to title them very carefully. But if they search for that and your episode comes up and it's still relevant to them 3 years from now, they will listen. So that's a really, really important point. So that's how you create content ideas that attract your ideal audience. You have to either gather their frequently asked questions or start to discern what they are really, really concerned about and the questions that they ask and what their hesitances or objections might be, even when you're talking to someone and trying to close a sale or trying to work through some contract negotiations. And you are able to address those things on your podcast, that's those are going to be like the top hits of your show. All right, next question. How do I get more listeners? How do I get more visible? How do I get more people to hear my show? How do I get more people to watch my video? all of these things. We're always asking about like, how do I grow? How do I get more visible? How do I expand my reach? All of these things. Okay. With podcasting, and I'm thinking audio podcast, then we'll talk about video pieces. The growth portion of that is still very much organic. You do need to do some like grassroots style work at first, unless you have a ton of money that you just want to dump into ads. So, some like grassroots type growth options or opportunities could be like emailing or DMing practically everyone you know with a not just a message that's like, hey, listen to my podcast. Nobody cares. Your message needs to be something along the lines of why your podcast is beneficial and for whom. So it could be that, you created this show for the sandwich generation parents who are struggling with debt, right? So you're addressing multiple very specific keywords there, and someone could very quickly identify whether they are one of those people or not. So that would be a great phrase, for example, if that was what your show is about, and you would reach out to people and say, like, hey, I just started this podcast. It's about, ways to handle this, and it's for this type of people. That way, the 1,000 people that you're in contact with that you've DM'd or emailed can immediately identify if they fit, and if not, who it fits. And your message could include, like, hey, if you know someone that could benefit from this type of content or who fits in this category, if you could please share my show with them. And here's a link, right? So that kind of grassroots reach out is an option. The other amazing grassroots style option is to actually do like an ad swap with other podcasts that your ideal person would be listening to. So let's just stick with the same example. If your show is for folks that are in the sandwich generation, so middle age ish parents, right, who are also struggling with debt, then you would look up other podcasts that those people would listen to, right? Like look up those keywords, find a short list of other shows, and you would literally like reach out and make friends with those hosts and say, hey, our show is targeting the same people. We offer different services. These people need your services and my services. I would love to advertise about your show on mine and for you to do the same. So let's both record like a host read quick script talking about each other's show and run that quick little 30-second ad on each of our shows. So, as a listener, think about that. I'm listening to like my favorite show that helps me so much, right? And then I hear the same host talking about this other show that would also be really helpful for me. Pretty cool. So the chances that I'm going to actually listen to both shows now is really, really high. It's crazy, but when I say this, you're going to laugh, but statistically, like all the studies show, podcast listeners really love podcasts. And so when they hear about a show that also applies to them, they're just going to add that to their listening list, right? So it's like, oh, now I have another show I can listen to while I'm walking the dog. Or, oh, great, I didn't have a show to listen to on Friday's morning commute. So now I do, right? They're always looking for like that additional piece. Society these days are content consumers, just very, very thirsty for all the content, right? So that's an awesome grassroots growth strategy. The other thing that still just really works from the very first days of podcasting all the way till now, and just still a very powerful thing, is guesting on other people's podcasts. So if you're that financial professional that helps these sandwich generation folks get out of debt, you want to be a guest on other people's podcasts. So they could be other podcasts that help folks get out of debt. They could be other podcasts that address the whole sandwich generation issue. Maybe something about like how to care for aging parents would even be a fit. Just do like a brainstorm about like the types of shows that relate to yours. Not directly maybe, but like tangentially, like listeners of my show would also listen to all these other types of shows and then start digging in and doing your research. The guesting platform that I recommend you use is called Podmatch. I'm on there. I talk about it. I even did a recent episode about it. But Podmatch is a great way to get matched with other hosts and to get guests on your show. So sometimes those other hosts that you would love to be on their show, the easier way to get in is to have them on yours. And then before you hang up from the recording to say like, "Hey, this was a great conversation. I think I would be a fit for your show. Is that possible?" And just start that again, relationship in the podcast space so that you can help grow your show. Okay, so I have the windows open, and every so often the curtains like whip over and hit the cord to my camera. So that is what's going on. I just saw it happen. So sorry about that. It's really, really nice weather, and I'm loving having the breeze blow through, but the curtains are a little bit crazy. Let me move the desk. Hopefully that'll help if we like get away from the curtains a little bit. Okay, so those were a couple of grassroots style growth strategies. This is hilarious. I hope y'all are laughing as much as I am about this. Like, my house isn't crooked, I swear. Okay, so get more listeners or visibility. So beyond those like grassroots style techniques of like guesting, ad swaps, there's also in line with the ad swaps, there's also an intro swap. So as the host, when you're introducing your show, you could say like, "Hey, real quick before we get started, I want to talk about Joe's show who also helps you do XYZ. Make sure you check it out when you're done with this," right? Like a quick little blurb. And so obviously that host would do the same thing for you. So that's an intro swap. You could also do outro swaps. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ad. But some type of like collaborative coordination like that is always a win. Again, it goes back to relationships in that space. You can explore like doing lives together, doing Instagram live, like anything, any kind of like Instagram takeovers. There's all of those like organic content things that you've maybe heard of, but you're like, "Yeah, but how do I do that?" I guarantee you can Google how to do it, or talk to someone that you've seen do it and say, "Okay, how did you pull this off?" And then work on that strategy, right? If that was something where you picked one growth initiative to do per month or per quarter of the year, even if you don't know how to do them right now, guess what? In a few months, you will have done it. You will have gained experience. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, but I bet you learned from the experience and you can try it again and make it more successful next time. So, as I ran through these real quick, I hope you took some notes, wrote them down. I hope it inspired some ideas and just, map it out. I have it, you can't quite see it. You can see the whiteboard behind me, but I have another whiteboard in front of me that is the calendar year. And so, there's writing all over it as far as what's happening monthly, what's happening quarterly, and different growth initiatives and ad sets that I'm going to try and things like that. So just take one piece at a time, work through it, try it, learn from it, take notes to implement next time. You can even use ChatGPT to help you form the plan and then to turn around and say, "Okay, here's what I learned from this and here's what I want to do differently. Help me execute a new plan." and then, look at next quarter or whatever it is and try it again with this new plan and new lessons in mind. So, beyond these grassroots pieces, I would consider exploring some ads, not ads to listen to your show. Okay. I know that sounds weird because I am a podcast person. But what is really going to move the needle for your business is not necessarily to push an ad to listen to your show, unless you are doing that on podcast apps. So, what I'm talking about is, like, say, Google ads or Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads. Those type of ads, it would be more strategic to run an ad toward a lead magnet of yours or a webinar or something that you're offering, rather than running an ad to your podcast. Once someone opts into your webinar or your lead magnet or whatever free content or 5-day email course or whatever it is that you have, they're on your email list. And so if every time you publish a podcast episode, you're letting people know via email from your newsletter, they will hear about your show and you will also gain them as a listener. So, uh, strategy as far as your ads go is also super, super important. If you want to run ads for your podcast specifically, I would dig into specific apps, like listening apps, where the platform offers the opportunity to run ads. Now, I know ads on Spotify are super expensive, so you need a much bigger budget if you want to attack that. But on some of the smaller, like audio only listening apps, you can pay to have your show as a featured show at the top of people's feeds. There's lots of cool opportunities that can be like less than $1,000. So if that listener number is important to you, that's what I would recommend. Also, if that listener number is important to you, I would question why. Do your listeners truly already translate into clients, like at a very consistent, reliable pace? And if not, then running ads and trying to boost my listenership is not my first strategy. Running ads to like a lead magnet or a webinar or something else would be my first strategy. So again, this is where the strategic piece of me comes out, and we dive in to your business, what lead magnets you have, what services you have, and that's where I offer specific podcast audits, brand audits, and even podcast strategy packages, where we would dive into like what is the correct strategy for your business, not something that's like mass recommended to everyone. So very specific there. All right. So I gave you, as far as the question goes, how do I get more listeners or visibility? I gave you some grassroots strategies, and then we talked about ads a little bit. So let me know if you have more questions about that. Okay, let me refresh here so I can see if there are any new questions in the chat. Okay. Very, very good. Let's see. Okay. I'm not seeing any in the chat. Here we go. Very cool. Very cool. All right. The next question, I did have some of these submitted ahead of time. So, how often should I release podcast episodes? So, this one and the question about how long your podcast episodes should be are like the top questions I get from everyone, even, and I'll tell you this kind of like a behind the scenes note here, even when I talk to someone who's already published 300 episodes, 600 episodes, they are still to this day asking me, okay, in 2025, how long should my podcast episodes be? How often should I publish a podcast episode? Those two questions are still asked by very experienced podcasters, not just new people starting and hoping that they can launch a podcast effectively, right? So this is across the board. And you're not gonna like my answer. Because it depends. It really depends. It depends on your ideal customer and listener's lifestyle and what your topic is, right? So if your topic is like in-depth investment analytics, then that's probably not necessarily something I'm gonna listen to where I'm, like, outside walking. I'm probably gonna pull up the investment thing that you're talking about, whether it's a fund or an ETF or whatever, and kind of look at it and maybe take some notes while I'm listening to you because it is this very, like, detailed specific learning experience for me, right? So your style of listener there, at least if and I'm not every ideal listener. Okay, so I recognize that too. But that's where you have to find out like how do people like to consume your content? Are they walking the dog? Are they doing the dishes? Are they driving? Are they at their desk in like an active learning experience? What do your people prefer? And that can determine the length and the frequency of your episodes, right? So if an in depth ETF uh, learning experience where you are analyzing this thing and picking it apart and telling me what it did last year and all of this stuff is going to take more than 10 minutes, more than 20 minutes, that might be okay if your ideal listener and ideal client is someone that would sit down at their desk at like an appointment, basically, with themselves to learn about this thing because it becomes this like interactive. And that's where, if that is your style, maybe you'd do better as live productions, right? To where people could actually ask you their questions. You could share your screen and see what you're looking at so that I don't have to pull it up by myself. Like there would be a different learning experience available there. So jump over to that sandwich generation, trying to get out of debt ideal client. So they are very busy people. They're dealing with aging parents, they're raising kids, they're working, they're also feeling this pressure around finances and trying to get out of debt. They probably want to be investing too. They probably want to be investing more because that's why they're trying to get out of debt to have like extra cash. There's all these concerns happening. And so they might be listening to your show, yes, to learn and to take action on things that you say, but they're also probably busy. So they're driving somewhere, they're taking care of a task, they're doing dishes, they're folding laundry, they're driving to their mom's house, they're doing whatever it is that is already part of their lifestyle that's important for them to do. So you're not going to know how long their drive is to their mom's house. You're not going to know how long they need to be folding laundry. But you might could look around in your own life and say, okay, 15-minute episodes, like that would be pretty good. You know, somebody could probably fold a basket of laundry in 15 minutes or drive to their mom's house in 15 minutes, something like that. So you would want to use some logical explanation to try to estimate what length your episode should be. But there again, you can also use polls. You can send questions out via email. Some of the email subscriber platform have polls options built in. You could use polls on LinkedIn. You could just ask questions. And maybe if it's something that you do as well, like driving over your mom's house to like check on her or maybe you're picking up groceries for your aging parents or something like that. You can take a video of yourself doing the thing and talking about it and say, like, do you do this too? Like, how long does it take you? How far do your parents live from you? And you're just trying to like look for similarities between your life and theirs and use that to determine how long and how frequent your episodes should be. The most common frequency for episode publishes is that a word? Publishes is weekly. And that is just because most people's lives thrive off of a weekly routine, right? We typically go to work Monday through Friday. We're home on the weekends. Our son's soccer practice is every Tuesday. Our daughter's is every Wednesday. Like we have things that happen on a weekly basis in our lives. So when a show is published weekly, it's easy for us to slot it in as a listener. So that's where you really want to consider your listeners or your ideal clients' habits and lifestyle so that you can adapt your content to fit what they need in the slots where they need it. So that's the answer to how often should you publish and how long should your episodes be. If your audience is marathon runners, obviously they're out running for a very long time, training, even in between marathons, they're outside running and training for hours at a time. So you could very easily have a very long-winded discussion with some like investment person or whatever it is, and you could produce hour-long episodes for that audience because of their lifestyle choices. So think about that. All right, next question. How do I make my podcast sound professional? Okay, yay. I'm so glad we are paying attention to the sound and being cognizant of noises that should not be in our recording. So, right now, I mentioned earlier, I've got the windows open. Maybe you saw 'em, my dogs and cats are like around. I'm probably tapping on the desk here and there. These are all things that I would not do if I was recording an episode because I can hear the leaves blowing in the wind outside. I can see my curtains flapping, and I know that there's a lot of air movement in this room right now. This microphone does help significantly with that because it is a dynamic microphone. It is not made for like a studio only setting, very similar to like a Blue Yeti or some of the other like studio microphones. This dynamic style of microphone really helps focus just on the voice. So while that all helps, if I was recording an episode right now and then I popped this recording into my software, I would hear the leaves. I would hear the air blowing through the room. So when you record, the way that you improve sound is by avoiding any room noise whatsoever. You're turning off fans, you're turning off the lava lamp that slightly hums a little bit, you're shutting the dogs out, you're trying to schedule around when the lawn crew comes, when the maids come, any distraction or noise. I mean, hopefully you don't have like a UPS delivery right in the middle of your recording because then the dogs go crazy. Like there's the obvious ones like that, but then there's the less obvious pieces where you don't realize that when you touch the desk, the vibration travels through the mic arm and into the mic. And so you get this like boom, like in the middle of your recording. You don't realize that you have bangly bracelets on and that the jingle is in the recording every time you move. You may not realize that even though my fan that I have on is quiet, that produces a hum in the recording. So there are all these little ways where, and I kind of challenge you to just be super, super quiet and turn off everything and just sit with your eyes closed in whichever room you can do it, your living room, your office, wherever, and just listen. And at first you'll be like, "Oh, it's quiet in here. I don't hear anything." But I challenge you to actually discover how noisy your home or your office really is. Beyond the obvious noises, right? If somebody's bumping around in the room next door, yeah, you're going to hear that, but just in silence, right? If I'm home by myself and I turn off everything and sit here in silence and listen intently, you will start to pick up on like little tiny, tiny noises that you didn't even know were there. And guess what? Those would be in your recording. So it's super important to have the correct type of microphone. And then it's super important to identify potential noises, the really obvious ones like the lawn crew, schedule, like, maybe they come every Tuesday at 2 or something. Obviously, schedule your recordings around that, but then also noises within your space, right? So, a fan, the windows being open, the dog, the cat, jangly jewelry, even sometimes if you're wearing a certain type of material, if you move your arms, you'll hear that like whoosh in the recording. Um, I mean, just all kinds of noise. So, the other piece that I find most often is for you to notice the distance between the microphone and my mouth. I mean, I've got a hand width of distance right here. And for the most part, the microphone is in front of my face. It is at a slight angle. You could even angle it even more if you have like a heavy breathing problem and you want your air to go past the microphone. That would be a great option. If you are handling your microphone, I'm not sure if you can hear this, but if I'm just touching this and just tapping this lightly, you'll probably hear that in the recording. So any chance you get a stand or a mic arm, and then be careful not to touch the desk once you have that positioned. So, type of microphone position, distance from the microphone should be a hand width. And then, anytime that you turn away from the microphone or anything like that, like if you had a physical guest and you turned away, your voice is now going this way, right? And I bet you can hear the difference just because I turned that way. So even if you had guests in the same room, right, you would want to position and like turn with your uh, proximity to the mic in mind. One big way that I am still not sure why people don't understand, but if you are doing interviews, the most important way that you can improve the sound quality of your recording is on your recording platform. I don't want you to use Zoom. Please, never, ever, ever. We do not accept Zoom recordings. And so I want you to jump over to Riverside or Squadcast or something like that. But then the other piece is, and if I were talking to someone right now, I would have earbuds in. So I would want all participants to be using headphones or earbuds in an interview. And the reason is that if you were talking to me and I'm listening just out loud because my computer is what is playing your voice to me, guess what gets picked up in the microphone? Your voice on my mic. And the same thing would happen to on your end if you're listening to me through your computer playing out loud in your office as we're having a conversation. So both participants or all participants of an interview have to be wearing headphones. That deletes the additional like room noise component of the other person potentially speaking out loud in your room. Then also having the right equipment, doing things to avoid other room noise on both parties, right? So if you hop on to do an interview and your guest has a fan on or something that you can hear, before you start recording, do a sound check and hear and like listen for what could be a problem. Ask them, hey, I can hear this, blah, blah. Is there anything you can do? Should we wait until the AC turns off? Or, can we like potentially like wrap a blanket on your legs or something so that you don't have to have your heater on right now during recording? There's different like conversations that you can have to reduce that room noise. So those are ways that from the recording you can make your show sound professional. It's all about awareness and minimizing room noise or other sounds being played out loud. Like at this point, I feel like telling everybody to have their phone on silent is, everybody knows that. But what we don't realize is our AC unit running or me having the windows open so that I can have a breeze or something like that. Because you think, well, that's like over there. It's like fairly quiet. No, it gets picked up in the sound. So from there, once you have the recording, if you're really looking for professional sound, Descript, even Audacity, like all of the editing platforms. I know the Adobe Pro platforms, they all have a kind of like AI option to improve your sound. So, and I cannot remember what it's called in Descript. It's been a while since I've been in there, but there's like a little toggle on and off, and you can increase the intensity or decrease the intensity of this like studio. Oh, it's called Studio Sound. That's what it's called. It used to be called that, anyways. So, Studio Sound, where it is using AI to enhance your voice and minimize any room noise. So every platform has this like auto option of like something that you can run or toggle on and off to give yourself an automatic better sound without you having to have some of the like really advanced tools that my team and I use. So great options there. I highly recommend doing that. The next question is, how can I repurpose podcast content for social media? So I think most of us have seen an audiogram. That's where it's like a still image. Maybe it has like a little squiggly line, and you're able to hear what the people are saying. It probably shows the host and co host pictures or the host and guest pictures. And it's just like a still image, but you can hear the audio. So that was super popular. I would say 2019 to, I don't know, maybe even through 2020. But as soon as we all started to jump into the video space, I haven't seen many audiograms lately. There are even more interesting ways to kind of do this audiogram piece, even if you aren't doing video. So you could create a video with, again, people's pictures and maybe like your cover art with like a cool background or something like that, where it would actually switch and show your face when you're talking, your guest face when they're talking, and it becomes a little video laid with your audio dialogue. Now, obviously, if you're doing video recordings, it's so much easier to repurpose content because you're just clipping out sections. And like I said earlier, like Riverside has some auto clips that it creates now for you when you record on Riverside. Some of the other platforms are integrating AI clips as well. There's a program called Opus, there's programs called Clap. I know for my team and my clients, we cut clips by hand, specifically pulling out sections from various parts in the podcast episode and putting them together as like an enticing, almost commercial for that episode to really create curiosity and, kind of hit those high points within the episode and make you want to listen to the whole thing. So there is the manual process of going through the full episode, pulling out something that's like, "Whoa, what?" And, like, putting that in the clip at first so that it catches people's attention and really creating that, like, hook with some snippets of content. A lot of the AI platforms, they do not do that. They will find a 60-second or 30-second section and pull it down, and that is your clip. It's not necessarily pieced together from various parts of the episode. So that's the difference between a hand cut reel or YouTube short versus an AI one. But if you are bootstrapping or for whatever reason you're not having a professional cut your reels for you, some of the AI platforms are a definite viable option. I would recommend going in there and tinkering with adding your logo, adjusting the font and the color, and playing with how it suggested the cuts be made in your video in an attempt to make it appear less AI. I know for a lot of videos that I've seen, like there's a bad cut in there, or like it starts to switch to the other person and then that person gets cut off and it goes back to something else. And so AI can make mistakes and it's not always perfect. But I would take the time if you're getting 10 clips out of a video because of AI, take the time to go in there and add your logo or add your podcast cover art. Pop it into another video editing platform and add an end screen so that we actually know where to go to find your show. Like there's different little things that you can do that will really help in the repurpose piece. So if we're not talking reels and shorts and you're just still looking for ways to repurpose your content from your podcast, whether you're doing video or audio, there's always an opportunity to turn your episode into anywhere from 1 to 3 blog posts. So, depending on how long your episode was and what you covered, you have the option to pull out sections of your episode and craft just that portion or that topic into a blog post for your website. Then the beautiful thing would be to name that something completely different, something super SEO friendly, super niche that addresses that specific topic or question. And then you can always embed your YouTube video or your podcast episode in all 3 of those blog posts, right? So you went from a podcast episode, let's say it's also on YouTube. So that's 2 places. Let's say you're using AI to cut reels. So you get 10 different reels, you put that on social media. You also, I hope, are using a plugin to push your recorded episodes to your website. So it's automatically uploading maybe your YouTube video or your podcast episode with the podcast show notes. But then you also can manually go in and put up these 3 different blog posts with your podcast episode or your YouTube video embedded in. The nice part about that blog content piece is, like I said earlier, like you have the opportunity to name that specific blog something completely different from the episode title that is super SEO friendly with a very specific keyword that someone might be searching for. But you also have the opportunity to put a different call to action in that blog post. So, whether in the episode you directed people to one resource or another because of the rest of the content, you can direct this specific blog post's readers to a different lead magnet. And this is a great way to kind of like have a lot of things going on and see what people jump on, right? See what the most popular lead magnet for your ideal audience really is. Aside from blog posts, the other thing that I find is very interesting and engaging for social media is pulling out like your top takeaways or your top action steps or the top topics or whatever, like these kind of listicle type quick hits. Those are awesome for social media, whether you story them, whether you share them in a Facebook post. And what you can do then is say, okay, for more on this or to listen to the full episode, then go here. But they're getting value out of, the top 3 ways to XYZ just from reading that post. And the immediate assumption there as a reader would be, oh, then if I listen to the episode, I'm going to learn so much more and be so much better off, right? Because this helped me already. So that's how you're going to start to gain those listeners and eventually clients. So, one thing before we wrap up that we didn't address earlier is how to specifically pull those listeners in as clients. And I think that's a great way to wrap this up because we just talked about when you're repurposing content for social media, you can add those extra calls to action. You can, say, okay, here's the top 3 takeaways, and then for more, listen to the full episode. So, with all of that being said, I kind of alluded to this earlier where I said I would only ask people and like have my call to action to be to follow me on Instagram if I already had something that was working, that was consistently turning my Instagram followers into clients. Most people don't have that. So, what I teach is the conversion loop. And that is where listeners find your podcast because you have been intentional about your title of your show and your title of your episodes and the content you're creating and answering those top frequently asked questions about your business or about your services as episodes. So they come in, they get value, they're getting their questions answered. Every episode has a specific call to action. And in doing that call to action, they end up on your newsletter list or in your email subscriber bank, right? Maybe they downloaded something free, they signed up for a free 5-day email course, they got some other free information, maybe it was a webinar, whatever it was that they signed up for, they end up on your email list. So that's step 2 of the conversion list is that they not only get the free amazing information in your episodes, they also got some kind of download or something that's semi-tangible like an email course or a webinar where they're also getting more free information. They're getting to know you more. Hopefully, they see a picture of you or see a video of you. They're feeling like they're starting to trust you a bit more because that's what it's all about when we're pulling in customers is creating trust with the people who find us online and tell them that we're a real person. We're not like some AI fake. So once they're on their email list, then the next step is that they are receiving a welcome sequence, a nurture sequence, a set of emails that really invites them in and shares your values, shares who you are, why you started your business, who you help, like all of these good things while also sharing additional content. So you might like this blog post if you liked this, or if you're this type of person, check this out. And you're referring them to all this amazing free stuff that you do. And down the line in there, you're letting them know about your course, your program, your services. You're asking them to book a financial plan session with you, whatever it is, because through your email sequence, they are, again, feeling like their trust in you is growing and you're dropping little breadcrumbs about the services you provide and how you help people so that at some point they've seen what you do and how you do it and some testimonials and just all kinds of amazing information. And they're thinking like, gosh, I'd be dumb if I didn't sign up for this. That's the goal, right? Is to get them into a position where they know without a doubt that you are the ideal professional for them and that they have to sign up for your services. Like there is no other option. This person is amazing. I've been listening to their podcast for 6 months, whatever it is, right? Their emails are always so helpful, whatever it is. And that is how you attract them in as clients. And that is what completes the conversion loop. And of course, after they become that initial client, they stay on your email list. And so you have to start to design your business to where you can continue to serve them. And it's not just like a one time, they bought my course or they bought my thing and they're on their way. What's next? Right? So that is like a very long-term perspective of that client journey, but that's what you have to think about is that conversion loop from your podcast all the way until they really do give you money for your course, your services, whatever it is. And then what? Right? So you're helping them mature through your process. And then as your clients mature, your business continues to serve them with higher level services, other products, a more in depth financial plan, whatever it is. So that's the conversion loop, and that's where I'm going to leave this live today. I'm going to start doing these live Q&As every single month. So if you have any podcasting questions, I'm here for you. You can email me at any time at virginia@podcastabundance.com. I would love to feature your question on the next live next month. Let me peek at the calendar. Next month, the live is going to be right here, same place again on November 18th. If you are not on my email list, I want to encourage you to go to podcastabundance.com and sign up for any resource or freebie there. There are some spots where you can just sign up just straight for the newsletter. But by signing up there, you will get notified about these type of events. You can sign up, reserve your spot, submit questions. I do lives, I do networking events for podcasters, and mostly for like business owners who also have a podcast that serves their business. And then the other piece is a monthly webinar. So all of these things are available, of course, as free content to you. So I do practice what I preach and help you grow your business with podcasting. So until next time, thank you for being here and thank you for all of your questions today. Take care. Bye.